Well, hey guys, how you doing today? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. I wanted to do this short little video about front loading just for those of you that are doing some of these practice targets in the Opening Minds forum. One of you had a question about what front loading is, and front loading is a way of giving the viewer a little bit more focus on what the target is, so that you can get or expect to get much more detail from their viewing session. Now, normally when you're doing viewing in a training process, you're doing it double blind because you don't want the viewer to have any mental noise or contamination or so forth. And the highest standard for doing a viewing session for scientific purposes is to do it double blind, triple blind, so that nobody knows what the target is. You could even have a computer choose a target after the session is done, just so you know that there's no other way that the viewer is getting that information. But in the real world, there's always going to be some degree of front loading. If you're doing a target for somebody else and they want to find their missing cat or find buried treasure or something like that, you already have a little bit of front loading to begin with. Now, of course, it depends if you're doing this by yourself or with a group that you work with. But in many cases, in real world sessions, there is some front loading to begin with. I remember a case that a bunch of us did here in Boulder, Colorado once. Somebody contacted me, said that their cat was missing. Could we do a viewing session on it? And we all did the viewing session. We all got that the cat was now in heaven. And when we sent this back to the people that requested the information, they were not very happy with that response. And you can imagine why. So that's a real world situation where the front loading is there. The target is a missing cat. And I remember some of the military viewers telling me that they had a lot of front loading when they were doing their sessions. For example, once they did a session for the DEA and their job was to fly over this boat while they were over the boat. It's a boat that kind of made a certain transport on a certain schedule, weekly from, I guess, Latin America to Florida or something like that. And, the DEA wants to know, are there drugs on the boat? And the viewers did it, went over the boat. It's front loading, right? And they got that there were drugs on the boat, and the DEA had one of their boats go and approach it, and there were drugs on the boat. So that's a kind of example of front loading. You often get it in real world targets. Another example would be like this famous session, which I'll put on the screen here, from Joe McMonagle, where he was asked to view a shipping construction yard in the Soviet Union, not far from the North Sea. And they wanted to know, the Defense Department wanted to know what was going on in there, what was being built. Everyone thought it was some huge aircraft carrier, but Joe got that it was a new type of huge submarine. Ended up being the Typhoon submarine. Well, no one believed Joe's session because no one had ever seen a submarine like that before. But when the submarine was wheeled out towards the ocean a couple months later, it looked exactly like Joe described it. So that's a type of front loading. You're given a big picture of a big building. You're told that, it's a shipyard. So you already have some ideas in your mind. Now, front loading doesn't make it easier to do the session because as soon as you have some front loading, your mind gets very active, as you could understand. So sometimes double blind is the way to go. But, in many cases, you'll be told a little bit in a real world situation about what the target is because the client or the person asking you to do the session has already given you a little information. Now, if you're like the project team leader and you're sending off these targets to other people, I guess you could keep it blind in the sense that the viewers might not know what it is, and then the tasker would have their job of reassembling the information afterwards. So you would have a choice there. But that's what front loading is for. You can choose to give the viewers a little bit of information because you want to get very specific detail about that particular target, or you could still do it, single blind, double blind. It's really up to you. But in practical sessions, you're usually going to have some degree of information about the target, and the viewer Let's say going back to the DIA days of remote viewing when they were looking for hostages in the Iranian hostage crisis in the late 70s under Carter's administration. I mean, you're assigned particular names of people that you're remotely tracking to see how their health is. That's a lot of front loading right there. And yeah, those can be successful too. So it really depends on what your objective is. Sometimes in these sessions that I give you here on the forum, I put a little bit of front loading in, sometimes I don't. And just so you can see what the difference is when you do it. Okay, that's my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care and bye.